Hey everybody, Jeff King here, coming to you again with another Kickstarter preview. So, Kickstarter initial impressions video for Robot Empire. So, Robot Empire, a pulp sci-fi, so old school pulp sci-fi themed game where the robots have risen up and are battling each other for supremacy. So you're controlling a robot army, mix in some monsters that they find along the way, and your humans are kind of acting as agents. So they're the weaker cards in the deck, if you will. And you're pitting your robot army against your opponent's robot army. And you'll eventually see in the game behind me, everything kind of resolves around these tiny little power coins, which are extremely important. In this game, the power coins are not only your currency to spend, but they are also your life total. So they go on this life coin bank card you have, which is also your base. You'll put anywhere, if you're just playing straight up, you can put 20 coins in each. There is a ability to basically put somewhere between 15 and 20 coins in there. And you can actually decide that as you're playing. And I can put 15, my opponent can put 20. So here's what happens. Each player starts with 6 coins at the beginning of the game that they can spend, and you'll accumulate coins throughout the game. But you can decide to go with less than 20 coins in your life bank, which means you're a little bit easier to kill, potentially, because you have less life when you start. But whatever you don't put in there goes into your spending vault, so you get to spend it right away. So it's that gamble of, do I think I can survive if I get some more coins and kind of be able to use them and spend them in a way that's going to keep me alive long enough to knock my opponent down and even out the playing field. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I do like that aspect. I just played straight up 2020 for the most part so far. But I like the idea of that. I like games that kind of do that. I've looked at a couple other games that do something similar in their game mechanic. And it's kind of cool, I think, for a player to be able to kind of wager that and make that decision for themselves and see if it works out for them. So yeah, you do have your spending vault as well, which is where your coins are going to go that you haven't spent yet. And then you, in the middle of the table for everybody, there's a war chest. That's where all the spent coins go. And you'll have a mining moon as well, which you start the game with 1 mining moon. The rest of them will get shuffled into the main deck. And the mining moon is a place that if you have a robot that has the ability to fly, you can kind of go harvest from that moon to potentially get more coins. The trade-off there is you're pretty much giving up a robot for any attack or defense for like 2 turns, because one turn it'll fly up, and then the next turn it comes back with whatever coins it was able to collect, but it's in a recharging state, so it's turned sideways, which means it can't attack or defend. So you got to weigh that option as well when you're going in. You got to know, well, I'm giving up this robot for 2 turns, and I think you'll see in the game behind me early on, some of the coins were gathered from the moon, but later on it got harder to do because you really have to weigh trying to get coins versus being able to protect yourself. And you have to have a robot that actually has flying, so that's another thing. I mean, there are cards that you can upgrade robots to flying. Some of them have the flying ability, but you just can't go to the moon without them. The other thing, depending on the moon that's out, and you'll get more and more moons as they come off the deck, they just go right into the middle and you get to draw another card to replace it. But some of the moons have a cost to go to them. Most of the moons, I think, actually have a cost to go to them. So you got to spend a coin to get up there as well, or whatever it may be. So you got to weigh that in to your decision as well. So kind of what are you doing? So I'll just go down a turn thing here for you. There's a beginning phase, which is basically like, reactivating your monsters and robots and stuff that were recharging. Basically, if you attacked last time and you had to turn them sideways, now you get to put them back up. Same with any equipment that you might have had to have done that with, that kind of stuff. Any instants, because there's permanent upgrades and instant upgrades. Instant upgrades you do the one time, and you can do it again later. So that's a continuous thing you can use as long as you spend the coins on it. So at the beginning of your turn, you clear it off because you only get it for the turn versus the permanent one, which once you've paid for it, it stays on. So you do that. You take care, you reactivate or reactivate your monsters and robots. Then you play cards. So this is where you'll either put out more robots, maybe put out some monsters, maybe put out some equipment, maybe upgrade a robot. Again, all of these things cost coins. Some of them also have additional, like if you want to make a permanent or like you said, the instant, you can pay that too. Those you can kind of pay on future turns as well if you want to. So you can put it out now and maybe upgrade it later. You do all that kind of stuff and put out all the cards that you want to play. And then you decide if you have a robot that can do it, again, with flying, do you want to go to a moon and try to harvest for some power coins? So you make that decision. After you made that decision, then you go into kind of the combat phase. And the combat phase, first thing you're going to kind of do is long-range weapons and possibly super weapons if you want to as well. Super weapons are usually pretty powerful, pretty costly, and they're one-time use kind of things, but played at the right time, they can really kind of turn the tide sometimes. Your long-range weapons, depending on what it is, you'll have to kind of read those, but some of them can only attack robots, some of them can attack robots and monsters, some of them can attack anything but like the life bank. I mean, all those kind of different things. So you just look at what it is, but long-range monsters is before the initial combat takes place, or long-range attacks is before the initial combat takes place. So you'll recharge those usually and deal the damage appropriately. So you may be able to wipe out a robot or at least do some damage so that your opponent has to kind of think about whether or not they should defend with that robot or monster, depending on, again, the long-range weapon. So even if you don't necessarily destroy something, you might make your opponent think twice about defending with it if they're going to lose it, because damage stays until the end of the turn. So if I do a little bit of damage to your robot or monster now, and I come in with a couple more robots for the close encounters combat, which comes after the long range and super weapons. Now, if I've got coming at you with any one of my robots, we'll say for this, can destroy you, you've got to weigh whether or not you want to do that, or you want to let me through and any of my attacks that aren't blocked come off of your life bank. So you start losing life yourself. Or you can block it, sacrifice a monster, sacrifice a robot, and not lose all that life. And then anything that is destroyed or killed goes into the robot pile or the discard pile. End phase is pretty much drawing back up to 7 cards. Everybody's going to have 7 cards in their hand, and you're going to have 3 coins as well. You get to collect 3 coins. So you're getting 3 coins every turn. Now, and as you, especially towards the end, and you see this behind me, you start with 6 coins, potentially more if you give yourself less than 20, and you're getting 3 coins every turn. That is your main way to get coins. Again, you can harvest. There are some mining equipment that might give you some coins as well. So having 6 coins and getting 3 every turn sounds like a lot. On paper, that sounds like a pretty decent amount of coins coming your way. You really got to manage your power coin spending and what you keep and all that kind of stuff. And it gets really tight and gets to a point where you just can't do everything you want to do. And you might end up having to kind of stall a turn or two to try to collect some coins. The other thing, we talked about monsters and robots. I said a little bit at the top that the humans are kind of the weaker thing. They don't actually come out for combat per se, but they're called agents. So humans are agents, and they can do various things, but a lot of those come with a cost, and they can be played out of turn. So they're kind of your instant/interrupt kind of thing. So For instance, I believe at one point in the game behind me, you're going to see one side tried to do a long-range missile attack, which would have killed the other person's or destroyed the other person's robot, and I think the only robot they had left. But they had an agent card and were able to pay the coin cost for it to basically hijack one missile attack. So did not destroy that robot because of that. There's some other things. I think there's like getting rid of robot equipment or robot component upgrades. Just all kinds of different things that you can do. One that lets you take an agent from your opponent's hand, all that kind of stuff. So they're all pretty cool. They're all kind of, like I said, instant interrupt type stuff. And some of them are free to play. You just got to read it and what it's doing. But a lot of them have a cost. So once again, I can't, if I have one of those in my hand and I think it might come in handy, I can't spend all my coins. I got to save coins to make sure I can do that. Because when the need arises, I just get to reveal it, pay the cost, discard the card, and there you go. And that goes off. But if it's in my hand and I don't have the coins for it, it stays in my hand. It does me no good. I just got to look and watch whatever that could have stopped happen. So that's another thing to kind of weigh. So you're weighing your coin spending. You're weighing when to harvest versus keeping back for attack and defense, keeping coins for your agents and some of the stuff they do, the ability to upgrade your robots, to be able to put out equipment and potentially use, again, saving coins for, like in the combat area, to use your super weapons, or any equipment that you put out might also have like a long range kind of attack that you can spend for and recharge it. All those kind of things. Lots of things going on. Monsters and robots, all stuff, they have an attack value and a defense value. Pretty standard fare there. You know, your attack is going to be your attack. Your defense is basically your health. And attack and defense will trade blows, so your damage will happen. I haven't seen a card yet that I'm aware of that's kind of like a first strike kind of thing or a lightning strike kind of thing. Whereas if I take you, you don't get to do my damage. I haven't seen that. So far it's been just attack to attack and defense to defense. So then that's something else you can kind of weigh as well as, if I'm attacking and defending, more so on defense, I'm attacking. I've kind of looked at what you've got. I'm trying to figure out and weigh what you might do in defense side of things. But on the defense side, you can double up and all of your attack will go through, but then the attacker gets to decide where his points go. The caveat being, of course, that like if you have to do enough to kill one before you can kind of go on to another. So you can't say, okay, well, I'm going to do 1 and 1 to each, which again, depending on what's going on, might not really come into play that much, because the fact is, if you survive till the end of the round, you're basically healed anyway. But yeah, you have to take out one before the other. A couple things. Again, this is a prototype. It's a handmade prototype, which is perfectly cool. We do that kind of stuff all the time. So the one thing I'm not sure of is like what art is final, what art isn't. I do get a feel in this game when looking at the art. Like, I like the idea of the pulp sci-fi, the old school pulp sci-fi thing. And some of the cards do a really cool job of doing that. Some of the cards seem a little out of place. They're not quite in that same vein. They kind of take you out a little bit, maybe slightly too cartoony-ish versus some of the other ones that maybe, especially when you're matching them up, if they're like a component upgrade to a cool-looking robot or something like that, it looks a little out of place. Again, I don't know what's final art. You have to check the Kickstarter when it goes live to see some of that. So there are pieces in here that I really like. There are pieces in here, as far as the art style goes, that I could do without. There are times I think the graphic design layout could use a little cleanup and maybe do a couple different little things. I don't mind the idea of spending your power coins and putting them on for power-ups and instants and stuff, but especially the permanent power-ups, if you will. You basically put a coin over top of it to signify that you've spent, and that's a permanent upgrade. Problem is, the way the card is laid out right now, that permanent upgrade and what it does is underneath the coin. So you'll probably see it in the video from time to time, kind of moving the coin to say, okay, what did I pay for? So that's a little bit of an issue. Again, not final version, and this is a homemade version. I understand that, but some of the dark on dark, as far as like the background and the text, some of them are hard to read, and that's coming from somebody that plays with studio lights on so that I can capture stuff. And even when I'm just playing in general, usually just to get good light in here, we throw the studio lights on, the camera lights. So well-lit area, still some of the stuff is kind of can be hard to read. Not a lot of cards, but there are a few that kind of do that. So just kind of an overall maybe graphic design layout. Again, I don't know what the final version is actually going to look like. I can only go by what is in front of me. There are a nice reference sheet that came with it, a reference card, and a kind of breakdown of what a card means with all the stats and stuff. So that's kind of nice. I like that stuff. That's one of those things that, you know, if you're not going to have anything else on the back, this could be a front back kind of thing. If it wanted to be, not a big deal. Prototype, so I had to supply my own D6s. Please, at first, I didn't know if I was going to need D6s until I started finding cards that actually make you use D6s. So if that's the case, again, one of my pet peeves, everything for a game should be inside of a game. So when this launches, hopefully we'll see D6s like in the box or whatever. I know everybody's got D6s, but you're selling me a game that requires D6s. I would like to see it in the box. Rules could use another look over. The cards can maybe use another look over. I think some terminology maybe changed during the game. Again, I don't know when this copy was made versus when everything's going on the Kickstarter. So it could have just been a transition. The rule book, and this was, I know the rules that were sent to me were kind of an upgraded sort of rules. Not bad. But could use some cleanup, a little text heavy in some areas, maybe throw in some examples. Some of, especially the combat section, I think, just tighten it up, get some bullet points in there, and that would be a lot better. And again, some examples, visual examples help as well, even just to break up the wall of text. So again, those are just a few things that I would suggest when looking at this. So again, check out the rule book and all that stuff if it's available on the Kickstarter page. All of that said, again, some minor things, but things I think need to be definitely looked out for. If you like the idea of the sci-fi pulp fiction theme, which is kind of cool and is a little bit different right now, so going this retro style kind of game, it's kind of cool to think about it from that aspect. I mean, you're sitting here with various kinds of robots and things like space zombies, one-eyed Kelso, just different things like that. This nice pulp fiction-y style. Monsters, the human agents have a nice pulp fiction feel, pulp sci-fi feel. And the robots have that feel as well. Again, some of them feel a little bit out of place, but they could be placeholder art as far as I'm aware. But the overall theme is pretty cool. The robot armies against each other, kind of taking on monster mercenaries onto their side and using the human agents for their will and kind of doing that galactic battle, if you will. And it's just down to whoever can destroy the other person's base first. So it has a very Magic the Gathering style feel. So if you like that style of game, if you're used to that and you like the old school sci-fi pulp fiction style game, pulp sci-fi fiction, I don't know why. Apparently I need to go watch Pulp Fiction. So if you like that thing, now again, I said the Magic the Gathering word. This is not, as it stands, a collectible card game. It's not a CCG. It is all-encompassing in one box. They, I believe, have plans for expansions in the future if this does well. So it could be an extendable card game, potentially. The way we played in the video is all one deck. and that's the base way to play. There is a nice deck building variant that you can do. So if you like to basically you can have your own deck, and each opponent have their own deck that you're pulling from to do your battle. That is kind of a cool extra option again. Or you can play again all in the one deck and deal with what you get and all that kind of stuff. There's a couple other variants. Let me see here. The Mining Moons. You can forego using them if you want. You can take those out if that's something that you don't really care about flying up to the moon. You just want to kind of do straight combat. Again, the other side of that is you may kind of be limiting a potential for extra coins. The other one is, upgrade ports. That's what it is. The base way you play the game, you can pretty much put any component upgrade on any robot you want, but they all do have this little symbol on them, or multiple symbols, like this one has two. You're not going to be able to see it from there. But there are symbols on the bottom that kind of equate to the type of component upgrade that you can do. So if you play with that variant, you can only use those type of component upgrades on that robot. So if it doesn't have the one that allows you to make it carry a rocket launcher, you can't put a rocket launcher on it. If it doesn't have the thing that allows you to do flight, you can't put like jump jets on it, stuff like that. So that's another kind of variant that you can kind of check out. So between that and the deck building, you can get a couple different ways to kind of play this. Overall, thoughts and opinions. End of the day, again, I say if you like the pulp sci-fi thing, you might want to check it out. If you like the Magic the Gathering style thing without having to worry about getting your mana, I guess. I mean, you have a constant coin flow. You kind of know how that is. There are other ways to get coins, but you're not relying on coins necessarily coming out of your hand. There are ways to get coins from out of your hand too, not many, but you're just not reliant on it. So if you like that idea, and again the battling and the combat and deciding when you should attack, when you should defend, who you should attack with, who you should hold back for defense, whether or not you want to fly up and grab some coins, all those kind of things. You might want to take a look at this. If you don't like those things, then obviously this might be something that you want to pass on. Overall, I had a good time with this one. I'm personally on the fence about it a little bit. I liked it. I had a fun time with it. Some of the little things I pointed out could probably improve it a little bit for me. Again, the wall of text in the rule book a little bit. Sometimes the art kind of pulling me out when it looks drastically different than some of the other pieces. But actual gameplay and the mechanics behind the game, that was actually a lot of fun. It did make me think about what I was doing from time to time. Again, I really had to make that decision. There are times I really wanted to go and try to get more coins to harvest with, but I'm looking across the table and I'm like, well, if I do that, look at everything that they can come at me with. So I got to forego getting more coins now. Same thing on attack and defense, and again, this is something if you play games like Magic and Game of Thrones and Netrunner and all those kind of games where you have to make those tough decisions sometimes. I had to, am I attacking? How much am I attacking with? Am I defending? Who am I defending against? That kind of things. Do I sacrifice a creature, a monster or something like that, just to make sure it doesn't get through my base? Do I let it go through to my base so that, I can have things standing and just attack back with less defense on the other side? All of those kind of things. Pretty typical stuff. All of that I did enjoy. I do think there's some solid mechanics here. I really, really would love, again, this is a homemade prototype that was sent to us for review. I would really want to see the final pieces, the final artwork. I think that could swing me one way or another, because if some of this is placeholder and it's replaced by the same type that gives you that very cool pulp sci-fi feel, that that could be enough to kind of put me over the edge and say that this is a pretty cool game that I might want to have in my collection. So there you go. That is what I kind of think for initial impressions for Robot Empire. It's going to be on Kickstarter soon. As soon as it is, obviously, like we always do, I will have a link in here somewhere so that you can go check out the Kickstarter, so you can go look at, I'm sure there'll be other reviews. I'm sure there'll be gameplay video. Check out the art that gets posted, all of that good stuff. Go check it out and see if this is something that interests you and if you want to back it. Okay? All right, thanks a lot, everybody, and I will be back soon.